It's been 16 hours since a vehicle was driven into the crowd at a Berlin Pride event on Saturday night. One person has died and another 16 were injured. A manhunt is still underway as we begin this live stream. Beyond the search for the suspect is a parallel search for answers. And in Germany, it's a familiar search. Most revolve around the simple why. But perhaps more powerfully in this case, we ask why again. Anthony Howard in the studio here in Berlin. Welcome to this live stream. We'll hear from a terrorism expert shortly. We'll hear from police as soon as we have more. And we have a reporter on the scene. Let's go to our reporter following the aftermath of this incident, Julia Gießler, who's standing by at a vigil for the victims that is taking place at Brandenburg Gate, close to the scene of the attack. Julia, tell us what it is that is taking place exactly where you are.
As you can see, I'm right at the Brandenburg Gate. The gate is behind me, and on the other side you can see people gathering now for a vigil, a memorial service that was organized by a queer organization quickly last night. They registered 600 people, but there are more and more people coming here, and it is very hard to say how many people are gonna be here at the end. It is about to start. You can see some rainbow flags in the back and also some from the trans community. As said, it's going to start in a couple of minutes, and it's a very fluid situation, but they all came here to commemorate and to think of the victims of last night's attack.
Jules, you were earlier at the scene and described people laying flowers. Do you have the sense that 16 hours later now, the shock of what took place is giving way to other emotions now?
I would say it is still quite a mix of feelings you encounter here. So the first shock might be gone slowly, but you still see people very puzzled. You see people are being very sad. You can also hear slowly some angry voices from people of like, how could this actually happen? And such an event that was taking place in the heart of the German capital. And we also heard some voices that came out. We talked to a guy earlier who told us, you know, this is the reason why we need to be here, why we need to be out and about with the community and stay strong and be visible exactly because of this hate and to fight against that.
Jules, as all of that takes place behind you and we can hear the police helicopter above you, there is an investigation ongoing at this point and most importantly, a manhunt. What's the latest we know about the suspect and police attempts to find him?
As you mentioned, the helicopter has been circling quite some time so far over Berlin to find a man. Earlier also at Tiergarten, I could see police then looking for some hints. It seemed like they went further into the woods in like bigger groups, and then at some point they even like sped up to, so it looked like they were following a hint. Investigation is still ongoing. We don't have too much further detail as of now. We could observe police working there, also marking what seemed the apparent way the attacker took with the van that was driven into a crowd of people. So we could also see the tree that was rammed by the car before the car then also came to stop at another tree. And so the investigation is still ongoing. The suspect so far, what we know and what was named by police as Abdul B, a 20-year-old male who is on the run. But it's not clear if he was the only one. He was the one named now, but it's not clear if he was the only one because people also reported about stabbing wounds at the time of the attack. And it is also still unclear if he was driving the van or if he had someone else driving it. So this is still under investigation and we need to wait for police reports later in the day. There will be a police presser and we hope to get some clarification there.
Jules, as the investigation is ongoing, do police, before I leave you, have any advice for anyone who may see someone matching the description of the prime suspect? What's the message to Berlin residents at this moment?
So police are saying if you see or hear anything or if you have any hints, please call the police, please let them know. that you saw something and be very detailed about where and what is going on. But at the same time, please do not address the suspect directly, because it is still unclear if he might be dangerous, if he might be armed. So this is why they say, stay away from him, don't address him, don't try anything heroic here, but please reach out to police and send all your hints over. And meanwhile, stay safe, police trying to still find it a cordon off, and as you can, behind me, it's all about to start.
Julia Gießler, our reporter, live at the Brandenburg Gate. We'll leave it there. Thanks so much. So let's take the opportunity to quickly recap what we do know about the suspect police are looking for. Now, in accordance with Germany's reporting guidelines, he has only been named as Abdul B. The 21-year-old man has a slim build and black hair and was already known to police. Police have carried out a search of what is believed to be the suspect's apartment. Authorities are warning the public, as Jules said, don't make direct contact with the suspect, saying he may be armed and dangerous. A closer look at where the car ramming took place in the German capital. It happened about 10 p.m. local time on the edge of the Tiergarten Park in central Berlin, a short distance away from the Brandenburg Gate, where we just heard from Jules, where the closing party was also for the Pride event that was taking place. Part of the Pride Parade's route had taken it through the park where the incident happened. Right, time then to speak to an expert on the matter, Hans-Jakob Schindler, Senior Director of the Counter Extremism Project, former coordinator of the ISIL, Al-Qaeda and Taliban monitoring team for the UN Security Council. Hans-Jakob, from all of what we know and you've heard, what conclusions can you draw so far?
I mean, the information about the background of the alleged perpetrator are still very scant. We don't know yet whether there is a letter or posting that he takes responsibility for. There seems to be, according to media reports, some links to IS, including an attempt to travel to Syria to join the organization. And there was, of course, a prison sentence that finished in May 2026. That's pretty much all that we know. What we can see from what happened is that we do have continuing limitation when it comes to the physical security of major events, because there is no absolute security if this is the only line of defense. If a perpetrator gets to that physical barrier, there was always going to be a gap. Now, here the event itself, which was on the big 4-lane road or 6-lane road leading to the Brandenburg Gate, was safe. However, it was people from going to or from the event that got attacked. So the question is, how far outwards can you extend a security cordon before it becomes non-practical, right? Therefore, you need to have a multi-tiered security strategy. Then this discussion will take us months. Was there a wrong security assessment, or was that the right security assessment but not enough resources? So there are quite a lot of complex questions, but clearly somewhere something went wrong. Otherwise, the attack would not have happened.
Yeah, I witnessed the area last night about an hour before the attack, and it was to see dozens of uniformed police at every checkpoint, bridges barricaded, intersections likewise. With all of those resources, clearly to me it didn't look like a lack of effort to defend against an attack. But when this is reviewed, is this failure more likely to be judged at the scene, or does this critical moment arrive much sooner in the chain of events?
Look, I mean, if this information, the scanned information that we have, is correct, that he had a link to IS, that he was in prison because, according to media report, he was preparing a serious act of violence, i.e. a terror attack, then, of course, there needs to be also a concentration on how was the security assessment of that individual who finished his sentence and then, of course, has to be released, conducted. Was there any indication? There's media reports, the neighbor said he talked for weeks about the CSD. Did anyone of the neighbors bother to report this to the security authorities? Yes or no? What was the reaction to this? So there is a lot of unanswered questions where we just don't know yet what was that point or the points that went wrong, that attack happened. Because, as I said, now the attack was on people going to and from the event, and there is really no enough security cordon that you could have potentially to prevent that, because there's always going to be routes that individuals will have to take to actually get to the event. You cannot close that off completely.
Do we know enough? Does it even matter at this point, Hans-Jakob, how we classify this? Is it an act of terror or not?
Look, I mean, legally, we're not there yet, right? Because it has a very clear definition of what terrorism is. And if he has left any notes or social media posts claiming responsibility, making an ideological argument, then, of course, legally, it's terrorism. But why would he attack, with his background, the CSD? It is clear that the Islamist community, like the right-wing extremism community, is very, very opposed to any queer community or queer life. It is part of their spectrum. We had in 2020 the stabbing of a gay couple in Dresden by an Islamist. We had in 2022 the beating to death of a trans person at the CSD in Munich. So it's clear the Islamists really are, especially if they get violence-oriented, are seeing queer life as something they are actively fighting against. So why would this be anything but terrorism? However, for the legal classification, we need more details.
I want to ask, how many of these type of events does it take before we would say we have a pattern? Bear with me. I want to take a look, if we could, at just a selected list of events over the last 10 years, a grim history and a relevant one today, I think. Germany has experienced at least 9 such incidents since 2016. Among them, a few months ago, 2 people were killed and 3 others seriously injured when a car drove into a pedestrian zone in Leipzig. Last year, as we take a look at the list, a car was driven into pedestrians in Mannheim city in the south of Germany, leaving 2 people dead and 11 injured. And in 2016, a truck attack at a Berlin Christmas market killed 13 people and injured dozens more. And so we ask, why has it happened again? Are we right to join these dots and to say that we have a clear pattern in Germany at this point?
Not just in Germany. So car ramming attacks are advised by terror organizations to be used as a form of perpetration, precisely because it does require no complex preparations or preparations that are sticking out. Everyone has a car or can very easily rent a car. We had a Nice truck attack in 2016, shortly after, as part of this wave IS attacks in Europe. So cars are perpetrator things that are advised to. If it is true, what is reported, that the individual or the individuals in the car also carried knives, then that's following actually even more closely the playbook of IS, who advises perpetrators who want to use a car to take a secondary weapon with them so that they can kill or harm more people once they leave the vehicle. We've seen a similar pattern, for example, in December 2024, 2025 at New Year's Eve in New Orleans in the United States, where the perpetrator ran a car through the pedestrian area and then had guns with him on top of that. So it is unfortunately the advice that terror organizations give to their sympathizers on how to easily conduct a terror attack. The problem is, in a modern, open society, we cannot close down our inner cities, not when there is a big event, but also not on a normal basis. And there's always going to be some gap that a determined perpetrator can use, even if it's just the fact that a group of people are attempting to get to the event or are leaving the event.
Yeah. Hans-Jakob, you say it's not just a Germany problem, but is there something that makes Germany more susceptible? Why does this keep happening in Germany particularly?
Again, it happens all over Europe and North America. Of course, the CSD, and this was a particularly large one this year, is, of course, always a target. Berlin is always a target because it is the capital, i.e. a terror attack in Berlin is guaranteed to get more media attention than an attack anywhere else because it's the capital. It is internationally watched. So we will always have to contend with this. And unfortunately, we are in a super complex security situation because Europe is surrounded by conflict areas. We have the war in Ukraine and heightened activities of the Russian intelligence services.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We're going to a police press conference. We've been waiting to hear more on this situation. Let's throw over to that if we can.
And appalled by this terrible attack. Our thoughts and our grief and our prayers are with the victims and their families and friends. Our thoughts are with those who are injured. We very much hope that those who have sustained life-threatening injuries will emerge from this very difficult situation and recover. Ladies and gentlemen, everything you see around you shows that this was a terrorist attack. An Islamist terrorist attack, we must assume. We know that the suspect, Abdul Balod, is a fugitive at the moment. And this is important because it means that we have a major police hunt of all of the police officers at our disposal, both the Berlin police as well as the national police, not just in Berlin, but at the stations and the airports and the borders of Germany. At the moment, one person has lost their life. We have a large number of people who have sustained injuries, in some cases life-threatening injuries. We are now assuming that there are 29 people who have sustained injuries and critical injuries. Yesterday evening, the suspect rammed a crowd in their vehicle, critically injuring many and causing the death of one person. After this attack, we believe that he attempted to stab people with a machete. Various other people who were passing have reported that they sustained injuries with this machete. What we are dealing with here is a suspect who was known to the police in the past through a high number of crimes that he had committed, through radicalization and affinity to the Islamist scene. The suspect is a German citizen. Of Lebanese descent. He was born in Germany in 2005. In 2002, his mother took on German citizenship, and he was born here as a German citizen. The large number of offenses that he has committed and his radicalization meant that he was sentenced in the past. In Berlin, he was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months imprisonment. This sentence was commuted to parole. The public prosecutor's office appealed this decision. At the moment, the manhunt for the fugitive suspect is at the heart of all of the efforts of the police force in Berlin and beyond. It is also the case that we have informed some of the federal states that there are other major Pride events being held today, and we are stepping up security measures in this connection. We have urged the federal states hosting them to increase the police presence there. We can never exclude the possibility of abhorrent attacks of this kind occurring. There may be copycat crimes. It is not typical for situations of this kind, but we cannot rule it out. At this point, I would like to thank everyone who came here last night as first responders. It's a terrible image. A vehicle ramming pedestrians, causing many injuries. But it was good to see how many people provided first aid to those who had been injured, and the police forces quickly came to the scene. They were in the area anyway. These were the Berlin police force, but also the national police force were present. They were nearby, and we also had police on horseback, and they immediately took on the case and did what they could. So I want to say thank you to everyone who has remained courageous, and I think it is down to them that more people didn't die at the scene of the crime. I would also like to say that just a few meters from where I am standing now, the vehicle used to commit this attack is here. This is not the actual Pride grounds. We're a few hundred meters away from the actual festival main. So the people who were here were in some cases people who would just happen to be in the Tiergarten Park or were on their way to the Pride festivities or on their way back from these festivities. We still need to carry out a detailed analysis of everything that happened, where the car left, what its route was. We're looking at all of these things. We can only assume what will happen next, but it's clear that we need to find the suspect. We have pulled all the stops out in this manhunt. We have also traced mobile phones that will be used to find the fugitive suspect. We are also carrying out our investigations all around to find traces. I can't tell you much more of what's going on there. I hope you'll understand that. But we have got special forces in Berlin and beyond working to find the suspect and bring him to justice. I want to say thank you to the law enforcement officers, to policymakers, and to everyone who has responded. Directly after the crime was committed, we set up a system, sort of command and control, and are in regular discussion with all of the involved forces, both within Berlin and nationally. And I expect that we will be hearing from the police later. We imagine that we will be going from both the police and the Office for the Protection of the Constitution and the Federal Office for Criminal Investigation will be involving the terrorist unit as well, anti-terrorist unit, sorry. Thank you very much.
Ja, meine Damen und Herren, auch von mir ein herzliches Dankeschön an den Bund.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would also say thank you very much, and thank you to you, Alexander Dobrindt, for the close cooperation that we have enjoyed with one another. Yesterday was a wonderful day for Berlin. Berlin was bright and colorful, showing how diverse and how wonderful this city is, that Berlin is a city of freedom, and it had all the colors of the rainbow, but it all went very dark at 10 p.m. last night in Berlin. I want to thank the Berlin police and the fire brigade, as well as the many organizations that have immediately offered the first responder help that they could offer. The emergency services did what they could to prevent even more injury, even more death. Our chain of communication worked very well, and we were quickly able to launch our manhunt, but also to take care of those who were injured. I was here last night as well, and we were not sure for some time whether this was another Islamist terrorist attack, but I think we've made some progress since then. We can only assume that this was indeed an Islamist terrorist attack, an attack on the way we live, an attack on our liberal democracy, on our open liberal society. The Berlin Senate will convene today at 3 p.m. for a special meeting. We will also be being briefed about the latest results of the investigation, and we'll be looking at how we can ensure that we prevent such atrocious attacks in the future. At 4:30, there will be a memorial in the St. Mary's Church, and we will go to the Brandenburg Gate. We have lowered the flags to half-mast in the Berlin City Hall, because, ladies and gentlemen, this was an attack on all of us. It was an attack on the way we live together. And we believe that it's very likely that this attack was an attack on Berlin Pride, but it was also an attack on the way we live together. And we must stop this, ladies and gentlemen. And we must speak clearly here. We need to look at how events of this kind, festivals, Christopher Street Days, major sports events, can be protected. We had a high level of security for Pride, and yesterday evening I was asked whether we did not provide enough security. Now, the actual Pride March route was not attacked. The attacker could not get there because the police had protected the route itself. But just 400 meters away from the main March route, there are, of course, visitors who come along to Christopher Street Day. Perhaps they've just come to the Pride March, or were leaving the Pride March, or just are ordinary Berliners or guests of our city who happen to be in that area. So now What we have to do is provide the best possible care to those who have sustained injuries. My thoughts are with the victims and my prayers, but particularly my thoughts are with the people who were there, the people who did not sustain physical injuries, but who witnessed these terrible events, who saw the victims, and they sustained emotional injuries. And my thoughts are with all of them as well. And my thoughts are with the first responders who were here quickly and prevented even worse things from happening. Ladies and gentlemen, now we need to bring this suspect to justice. I'm very grateful for the efforts of the Berlin police, and I believe that they will make progress quickly with their manhunt, and I'm pleased that across Germany we are hunting this fugitive suspect because he must be brought to justice with the full force of the law. And we're working on this with everything we have. Allow me to thank the organizers of the Pride March. The Christopher Street Day Association here in Germany responded in a very professional manner. You have to imagine there were hundreds of thousands of people celebrating near Brandenburg Gate, and then this news trickled through. And the fact that the entire event was concluded and everyone was dispersed calmly, without anyone coming to any trouble in this process, has to do with the Berlin police, but also with the CSD Association here in Berlin for their professionality, not just for organizing the Pride events themselves here in Berlin, but also after this brutal attack. They were so professional in the way they dispersed events safely. Thank you very much.
All right, that was Kai Wegner, Mayor of Berlin, who was at the Pride event last night. We're doing a live stream here in the aftermath of the attack at 10 p.m. local time in Germany. The Mayor's saying the investigation progresses now, assuming this was a terror attack. It was an attack, he went on to say, on the way we live in Berlin, echoing in many instances the words of Germany's Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt. The manhunt for the suspect continues. Berlin-wide special forces are now part of that case in Berlin, alerts in place more broadly at Germany's borders as they continue that search. Copycat crimes cannot be ruled out. They're not suspected to be coming up, but can't be ruled out. The man is a German citizen with a large number of offences, 1 year, 10 months of a prison sentence that was commuted. An update as well on the amount of people injured, that being 29, as we rejoin Hans-Jakob Schindler, a terrorism expert. You would have heard all of that as well, I was hoping, as Alexander Dobrindt mentioned it was a terror attack, and it does look like we've got Hans-Jakob back. A terror attack, he assumed Islamist, a machete was used. A lot of what you raised as possibilities before we went to that press conference, a lot of the possibilities that match now with what we've heard. Your reactions to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it now has all the hallmarks of a very classic ISIS terror attack. That's what they advise to do. The CSD, queer life, is always a target. This was a particular big one in the capital. Unfortunately, that fits the pattern. I mean, we are living in a law and order and democratic and free society, which means unless you are committing further offenses, the security forces cannot simply arrest you. If there was a tip-off that he may want to attack the CSD, then there is going to be a very serious question why he was not arrested on the day, or at least asked for an interview to the police station on the day of the attack. If there was no indication, then it's very tough, because there was more than one potential individual who the security forces had to take care of to protect the CSD event.
How difficult is it, Hans-Jakob, simply in terms of scale, if police were aware of this person, as they say they were, or any suspect, how difficult is it for authorities to filter the sheer amounts of threats that exist in our society in these times?
Look, I mean, we live in a mass data environment where thousands of people put hateful, sometimes violent content online and threaten things all the time. It is extremely difficult. The one technical solution to this problem would be that the platforms themselves, who have far greater tools and full access to all of that data and analyzing it very sophisticatedly for commercial purposes, if they would be part of the system and say, from the 1,000 people, the random number who threatened this event, these are the 10 where we would assume are most concerning because they are going towards a offline violent path here. If that's not the case, then it is more art than science, and there is always going to be some misjudgment. Plus, as I said, we're living in a law and order society. You cannot act against an individual if he or she is not preparing very clearly a criminal act. And renting a car is not an indication of a criminal act.
Just briefly before we go, the words from the Mayor, Kai Wegner, talking about the difficulty of keeping this area contained. It was actually after the event had taken place and it's people filtering out through those security zones. Your thoughts on that? We've got a minute before we're off air.
Yeah, I mean, damn if you do, damn if you don't. You can't keep the people at the event, but if you ask them to leave, there will be a limited amount of routes where those individuals are leaving. It is a risk, but it's more risky to keep them at the event when there is a live police scene right at the southern tip of that.
Hans-Jakob Schindler, Senior Director of the Counter Extremism Project. Not the best circumstances to talk, but we really appreciate your insights into the topic today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that is where we leave this live stream for now. Police remain on the hunt for a suspect. They are warning the public not to approach. We will have updates on this matter as they come to hand. Updates will be published on our social media channels and through our TV output through the day as they come to light. There will be many ways to stay on top of this story as it develops. From myself, Hans-Jakob Schindler, Julia Gießler on the scene, and a big thank you to them and our production team here in Berlin as we say bye for now.